Welcome to the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidi de la Cruz, and I am on the mission to change the narrative of immigration, one immigrant story at a time. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the American Dream in the Eyes of Immigrants podcast. I am your host, Heidi de la Cruz, and today I have a very special guest. I have Evelin. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the invite. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for being here. So why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and talk about your childhood growing up in New York.
Yes.
With immigrant parents.
Okay. So my name is Evelin Baez Andrade. I am a nurse. I've been a nurse now for over 20 years. And I also have a swimwear line, a customized swimwear line called Ir al Sol. It came from my immigrant parents' upbringing. I was born in New York. My parents, both from Barranquilla, Colombia, immigrated in the mid-'70s, separate times, not together. They met in New York. And it wasn't till I came of age that I realized they had immigrated. When I started school, I want to say, in New York.
Okay.
They were immigrants because they technically learned English through my older sister and myself, going to school and watching Sesame Street.
Okay.
So it wasn't till anywhere between 6 and 8 that we would bring stuff home from school, and they would have us translate it. Now, their explanation to us back then was, you're in America, but you're going to learn Spanish.
Okay.
As a kid, you don't appreciate it. You're like, but we're in the United States. Yes. I remember. And now as I got older, I appreciated it. But then it was also their way of having us translate our homework or teachers' notes into Spanish so they could further understand it. Okay. They had an idea, but they could further understand it.
Okay.
And that was impressive to me because I think everyone as a child sees their parents as on a pedestal. Mm-hmm. So to learn that was neat, and them trying to integrate into the New York setting. We lived in Queens, so there were a lot of Colombians that had immigrated at that time, but they also try to make sure we all integrated American-wise, make sure you sit up straight, make sure you straighten your hair. I don't remember having curly hair growing up.
That's a whole different topic right there.
So yes, that was nice. And then my dad, who worked for the airlines, would send us in the summers to Colombia. My dad and my paternal grandfather always brought us what they used to call el almanaque from Colombia because they traveled frequently back and forth. So they instilled in us, July 20th, it's Colombia's independence. This is the day of the flag. So they kept that in the household, made sure that we knew of the Colombian culture. I didn't realize why they wanted us to and to learn Spanish. And then they would send us there, which that was another shock, being 8 years old and going to Colombia from the States and then going to where we drank milk from goats. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And hearing roosters in
the morning.
What is that? And Barranquilla is a city, but it was still a shock.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this?
At the crack of dawn.
Yes. So that's a little bit about me, and having immigrant parents, wanting to integrate into the States and the Americanized culture, the westernized culture, I guess we call it, but still hold on and teach their offspring the Colombian culture within the household.
Yeah, and you're doing the same with your kids.
Oh, yes. My kids, I married into Portugal. My husband's from Cape Verde, so we try to speak the Spanish language. I failed a little. They're very Americanized, but at least they do get the best of both worlds in the sense that they know their grandma. They say hi in Spanish to grandma and little incremental things. And likewise, the Portugal side.
Okay, well, first of all, you didn't fail. Don't say that.
They're not fluent. But they understand.
It's okay because I'm struggling with my daughter. It's a struggle. I mean, growing up when they're little, right? One or two words, all in Spanish. We, speak with her all in Spanish. And at that time, I was living with my parents. Okay. And then also my stepmom's mom was there. So she was the one who took care of my daughter. So she only spoke to her in Spanish, right?
Correct.
But once school came around and she learned English and then she started asking me questions, complex questions. And I'm like, I can't explain this in Spanish.
Correct.
It was just easier for me to explain in English. And so like now I'm like, you need to speak Spanish. And she doesn't want to. But she understands. She speaks it with a heavy accent, but she speaks
very
it.
Americanized, like we say.
And I've mentioned before in previous episodes, she goes to the Dominican Republic every summer to be with her dad. And so I tell her, I was like, you got to talk to your grandma in Spanish because, she doesn't know English. And she's like, no, I talk to her. But since you know English, she tells me, since you know English, why do I have to talk to you in Spanish? And I'm like, because I don't want you to lose that.
Yes.
But it's a struggle. So no, you didn't fail.
I think as a parent, you always judge yourself harsher than what you really do.
But I love that you guys trying to integrate both cultures and keep that alive, because I feel like the more far removed we get, the little by little we lose. But it's like we want to keep that.
Correct.
So every single summer you guys would go to Colombia?
So it started from the age of 8. I guess when we were old enough to speak up and everything. My dad, he is very proud. He loves his Colombian culture. So it started the first year with him during Carnival. Barranquilla has a Carnival in the beginning of February. And it's where it started with the slaves and African slave integration of celebrating their culture. They were allowed in the 1820s to celebrate this one particular weekend. And then it grew to a cultural celebration known as the Barranquilla Carnival now. So my dad, when we were 8, he took us. And I remember it was so beautiful, so vibrant. It's a 4-day weekend and starts from Wednesday to like Tuesday. And that's where I first saw the florical dance, the cumbia being danced. A lot of the Africano beats that we get with our cumbia, our vallenato. And it was just beautiful. So the following year, he sent us to Colombia and he picked us up from our elementary school, me and my 2 sisters. I'm the second oldest. And he sent us over to be with my maternal grandmother and be with our cousins. And it was at first awkward because we are American and our cousins were fluent Spanish, and the climate, the roosters, like I said. And they used to have vendors since it ceased just because of the changes in time. But the vendors coming down the street in the beginning, and those that are listening and are Colombian, you hear the vendors in the morning, huevo, papaya, like
in
just
DR too.
And people used to run out and buy it. And to me, even though I was coming from the city, that was so eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
And then on the weekends, my grandma used to go over to Santa Marta, take us to Santa Marta, which is the closest in Cartagena, and tell the vendors to go catch fish. And while we were at the beach playing and looking at, once again, these beautiful palm trees, vibrant women with the empanadas and everything on their heads to sell, they used to catch the fish. We used to take it back on the bus ride back home, and my grandma used to cook it. And that was so eye-opening to me. Where in New York, we would go down to the bodega and get what we needed. We would go down to AM/PM and buy our milk and stuff. And here, I was going to the backyard and milking a goat. And I was just like, as an American kid, to see both sides was phenomenal for me. I want to say the first couple of days were shocking, but you just integrate into it. And then after 8, I couldn't wait till the next summer to go back, like go through school and everything. And my dad, when he started planning, okay, you're going to Colombia again, it was something to look forward to because we had the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And as immigrant parents, I look back now, I am at awe that they were able to do that.
So they were able, that key, that they were able to do that.
That to me is, I really was odd, like in my 20s, I'm like, oh my gosh, 3 of their daughters, because I have a 4th sibling, my brother, who came 8 years later. But to be able, as immigrants, sustain jobs. My dad sometimes worked 2 jobs. My mom worked 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. I never identified as a child of immigrant parents because they always made things happen and sent us the whole summer to Colombia. And to have my maternal grandmother there to teach us the culture, and my cousins to teach us the culture, playing soccer in the rain, that to me was phenomenal.
And so you said that your dad worked in the airlines. What did your mom do?
My mom had multiple jobs. She used to work, it was a company that did switchboards.
Okay.
That's what she started. She did some sewing, like back in the day. And I recently asked her too, what made you come over? And not in preparation for the podcast, but like, and she said she came over at 22 to find out, because her dad had renal failure. So they had brought him over to see if in the Americas they would identify a better plan of care. Yeah. Because in Colombia, they had already said there's nothing we could do. He did die shortly after he came over. So she never got to say goodbye to him. But she was the remaining out of 7 siblings still in Colombia. So she brought her mom over to be able to take her dad's body back. Okay. And she wound up staying.
Oh, okay.
So she stayed. She started sewing. She would sew in one of those warehouses, factories. Then she got into the dashboard stuff. Both my parents have high school educations. Now, my dad on the other side finished high school also in Colombia. And when I asked him, and this was amazing to me, he said, in our country, I don't know if in Dominican they do this, they go straight from elementary, high school, and then straight into university. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was why he was put on a waiting list in Barranquilla, being the city. So he said it was easier for him to get into the university here and learn English. And his older sister was already here. Okay. So he came over to get straight into the university instead of waiting a year lapse to learn English. And then to hopefully, I asked him, what did you want to do? And he wanted to be a radio DJ, like VJ, promoter or something. I was like,
oh, man, that's interesting.
So, and then he didn't, so he got into the airline. He worked for Pan Am, oh my gosh, for a couple of years. And that's where he was able to get flights for us back then.
Gotcha. Nice. And what made you want to become a nurse?
I didn't know I could become a nurse.
Oh, okay.
So I was in high school. I was always very social. So I didn't have the grades. I was a C student. Didn't have the grades, but not because I just was too social. I never finished my work, never applied myself.
Yes.
And in high school, when I was in high school, you could pick to go into health occupation or business administration. So in 10th grade, I said, and having immigrant parents, I wanted to provide and be independent. So they put me into a position as an orthodontist assistant. And ironically, my older sister, had already gone down that pathway. So in 10th grade, I started the orthodontist assistant through high school. So I would go in the morning from 9 to 11, and then from 11 to like the rest, 2 o'clock, I would work for this orthodontist. And that's where the orthodontist and my first husband, when we were high school sweethearts, said, why don't you go into hygiene? You're good with patients. You know, it was tactile. I'm a hands-on visual learner. No, that's not for me. No, that's not for me. So it was my first husband that went to the school that was opening in Miami, because now I'm in Miami in high school, filled out the application for me. And I got a call for an interview to go into the nursing program, but with the prerequisites. And that's how it happened. If my first husband would have done it, I'm like, no, I'm not that good. And once I applied myself and it was something like anatomy memorization, I gained my confidence. I got an A in that. Then I got an A in anatomy too. And it just took. So I went from being a dental assistant, loving caring for patients, into the nursing pathway.
And you enjoy it?
I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Geriatrics, it's an older population. I never did mother, baby, or baby. I love history. I love learning from immigrants and non-immigrants, just that older generation.
Yeah. Those stories are fascinating.
Yes.
Yes. So let me go back because you said in high school you were in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I did want to ask earlier about how you guys actually moved to Florida. So,
okay,
there we go.
So we were in New York up until I was about 8 or so. And then I want to say job situation. I think my mom got laid off. There was an opportunity in California. So my dad being in the airline, Pan Am, he just asked for a lateral transfer. So we transferred to California when I was in 4th, 5th grade or so. We were there for a while. He was still in Pan Am, and my mom found different jobs, trades that she could do. And then after the earthquake of 92, the one that knocked down the San Francisco bridge, we had been there since, I want to say, 88 to 92. That was our first encounter with earthquake. We fled. I think it was in like 2 months. We left. We arrived in Miami on Father's Day, June 15th, and that August Hurricane Andrew hit Miami.
Oh my gosh.
And I was starting high school. So I did a lot of elementary, middle school in elementary in New York, middle school in California, and then high school in Miami, because we moved when I started 9th grade and Hurricane Andrew hit.
Wow. What's crazy to me is how immigrants, since they've already moved from their home country, they are, I don't want to say easier, but they're more open to moving again.
Yes.
Because there's people, Americans, born and raised in their city, their state, and they never leave. I'm like, how?
Yes.
Why? Like, explore, even in the United States. Like, I feel like each state is like a whole different world. So it's like, explore at least the United, but there's people who like have not moved.
I agree.
And I'm just like, and it's crazy how like you guys, New York, California, and then now Florida, and I've had previous guests just, move from like state to state. And like, even me, I was born, in New York, and there's still a whole bunch of states I haven't visited, but I love that how we're so more open to moving, and it's like, okay, well, this is going on. We got to find somewhere else.
Their adaptability is amazing.
That's what it is.
The adaptability and the resilience to integrate, from what I saw with my parents, learn the language, and when they were struggling, have us translate to learn the language even quicker. And then to be ready enough, like you said, okay, it's not working here, we're moving here.
Yeah.
And then it's also a community.
Yeah.
Because they moved, because I don't even know how my aunt got here, but how Queens was predominantly Colombian at that time when I grew up, at least from what I know. And then when we moved to Miami, we moved to the Kendall area. It was predominantly Colombian and Venezuelan, and Venezuelan, which is similar, because we're on the border. Mm-hmm. And then when we moved to California, eucalyptus. And then when we moved to Miami, the same thing. And I agree, like, I never felt like an immigrant child. Mm. I knew they were from Colombia, but I never felt any different. Like, they made sure it was seamless, despite whatever difficulties they had that I didn't learn till later. Yeah. Now in my age that I inquire and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, you went through that?
Yeah. I love that for you. I love that you have that experience, because, not a lot of children from immigrants do have that experience or that feeling,
Yes.
For some of us, speak for my example, like, I knew my parents were immigrants. My dad could barely speak English, so I was always translating for him. And it was annoying to me. I'm going to be completely honest. It was annoying, like, having to go, because the thing is that my dad is a mechanic. So he would take me to the junkyards. He would take me to AutoZone. He would take me to Auto Advanced Parts to like translate for him. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. As a girl, right? Like, I don't want to be in where the whole bunch of men are and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to be here. But hindsight is 2020, and looking back, it's like, you know.
You hit a good point. Are you the oldest? Okay. So you hit a good point. I'm the second oldest.
Ah.
So middle child.
Yes.
And then there's a younger one who probably never has a whole different childhood. So I'm speaking from a middle child perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But I agree. My older sister, even though we're 15 months apart, her birthday's in May, mine's in July. Now that we talk and we relive, she had probably the same, I am pretty sure, I don't want to speak for her, the same childhood. Because we laugh now, but she used to be the translator. She is till this day the maternal one. We were latch, I guess it's called latchy kids. My parents had to go to work, but she was 6 and had to take care of us. Yeah. You know, for like
she's
1 hour.
She's the second parent. Yes.
So if you interview her, you're going to have that kind of.
I would love Evelin's sister. You're invited.
Because there's this one story she shares it. She was in kindergarten and she wanted to learn show and tell. It was show and tell. So she goes home to my dad, and I don't have visibility. She shares it with us years later. And she says, Dad, tomorrow's show and tell. What do I do? So my dad opens I want to say that it's Thea's birthday. So they look up how to say aunt in English. So when they look it up and they look at the pronunciation, if you look it up, it says or I forgot how it was. Mm-hmm. So she goes to show and tell, and this is a true story. The next day, she says, my show and tell is today's my birthday. And the kids laughed at her. Yes. So from a perspective of a firstborn and a testament to my sister, that was her experience. And she has said, she goes, I used to have to translate. I used to have to write everything double. So yes, you're right.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Gosh. Well, I'm glad that you had that experience, because I was like, for me, it was different. But you're right. I am me and my sister are 12 years apart because my dad got remarried. Okay. So when I moved out at 18, she was, I can't do math right now.
I do not look at me.
Okay.
I'm off.
She was young. So she and my little brother obviously grew up together. They're only 6 years apart. Okay. So then she's the oldest of them two, right? So she, like, when she would come to me with her whatever, frustrations with my dad, it's like, I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through. So it was like, then she had to translate. She had to help and search things for him on Google, because now it's different. Now he has a phone. Now, it's like different things, but like she still was the one to help him. So she would like come to me with like her frustrations, and I'm like, I know, I've been there. I'm so sorry, And
now that I think about it, she's the one who would help my parents study for their citizenship.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, here I'm the second born. I'm like, because she's going through all that part.
And you're just like, and then it just gets lessened as the kids come out. Yeah. So funny that you mentioned the citizenship test, because my best friend, her and I known each other since 7th grade. Okay. And now we actually work together, in my 9 to 5. And she was telling me, like, the memories that she has of like being at my house and with my parents and stuff, like stuff that sometimes I didn't even remember. I was like, oh my gosh, what? And one of the things that she remembers was when my stepmom was studying for the citizenship test, and she was listening to the CD with us. Yes. My audience is older. They know what CDs are.
You're like,
yes. Yes. So she was listening to the CD, and my friend was like, these questions are hard. I don't even know some of these questions. I was like, yeah, this is what they have. And the thing is that it's 100 questions that you have to study, and you don't know which of the 100 questions they're going to add. I don't know if they changed it, but that's how it was when she was going through it. And
that's what I remember. My mom had printed out a sheet, and I happened to see it on the dinner table. I'm like, oh, Mom, what's that? Oblivious again. I'm going to study for my citizenship. Yvette's going to ask me a couple of questions. I'll keep throwing my sister's name out, but that's her name. Ask me the questions. And I remember seeing like, who was the 13th president? I was like, what the heck? And back then, sorry, I'm going to tell my age. There was no Google. Encyclopedia. Like, if you didn't know, you had to flip through that.
I don't know who
letter.
the 13th president is. Can someone tell me?
Please don't ask me right now, please. I can't believe I put myself out there.
No, and honestly, like, I was watching a show the other day, and it's from the 1800s, and they were showing somebody who was acting as the president, and I literally had to ask Alexa, like, who was the president at this time? Because I was like, I don't know. I know the first president. That's it.
I know. And I know the current.
And I know the current and the yes. But yeah, so it's crazy how those questions were, my friend was like, these are hard. Like, I don't.
And I know you're supposed to be interviewing me. Did you ever encounter, I remember when I started high school and maturing, family reaching out to you, and especially, I don't know if it's because I traveled to Colombia those summers, I traveled from 8 years old till about 12, 13, because once we became teenagers, my dad being a dad, you're not going anymore alone, you know? I was so innocent, I didn't even know then why he wouldn't send us, but now I realize. I had family asking, oh, can you help me get to the States? I was like, what are you talking about? You know?
I didn't have family reach out to me per se, but I've heard rumblings of different people trying to come.
Yes.
And like trying to find different avenues to come. There's I don't know if it's an ongoing joke, but they even made a song about it, about how like Dominicans are just looking for an American to get their visa.
Yeah. And I was like, and I have cousins who are lawyers, doctors and stuff in Colombia. And I remember coming, I'm like, no, you have to learn English and start from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just lateral.
Mm-hmm. It's not as easy as people think it is.
No.
Yeah.
No, you have to put in work. And it comes down to what your podcast is about, the American dream. You have the dream, but it's work.
Yeah.
To get to living that dream.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I have this podcast, to share those stories, because a lot of people do have a lot of misconceptions about how people get here,
yes.
why they came.
Yes.
And that's why I started this, because I want to hear like what their upbringing was, what it took to get here, the struggles that they went through. And honestly, not everyone goes through struggles
Correct.
when they get here. It really depends. Really depends, honestly. It just really depends. I had one guest who was very honest, and she was like, not a lot of people have the privilege that I had. Like, I'm in a good place now, but when I came, she didn't really struggle and things like that. So she was like, I realized that, like, she acknowledged that, but not everybody has that experience. And that's why I love about this is like, I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly, the truth. Like, what was your experience?
My experience, like I said, my parents were so good at making sure we were safe and provided for, but we didn't live in the best neighborhoods. We lived in neighborhoods that they could afford.
Yeah.
And now that my mom shares with me, and I try to pull a lot out of her, she tells me that she had the 2 jobs, and she would come home, let's say from sewing, come home, change, and have to go to the factory to do the switchboards, little graphics. But sometimes she had a knock at the neighbor and ask for $1 to ride the public bus. Because my mom didn't even drive.
Yeah.
Because of the language barrier. She didn't get a license till we moved to Miami. Because in Miami, you have to drive. In Miami, like, it's hard. In New York, you have the subway. In LA, there's public transportation that comes around RTD every 5 minutes. So we lived in LA and Hawthorne, and she got mugged. She got jumped. I never would have known that. But it's because she would have to get to the bus station by 5 a.m, pitch dark, her purse. And when she got down one day, she said it was like about a mile, not far, but she would try to walk fast, and she got mugged.
Wow.
She screamed. She said she saw this huge guy over her. Thank God she was never hurt, but she screamed. So I can only imagine how traumatic that was and her nervous system. But she still came home and cooked, and I never left to school without breakfast. Those are things that...
Sacrifices.
Sacrifices.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I want to get into your swimwear line, how that came about.
So that came about being a young, how can I say, late bloomer. So I would see these beautiful colors in Colombia and come back to the States and want to go to the beach. And I had to conform to buying, like I was in high school and I had to buy Childs because I was size 10 or 12. I was so underweight, just in stature. And then in high school, when I got to Miami, the same thing. I had to buy high school and college 2 suits to make one. Small on top, like Shakira says, hips don't lie. Large on the bottom. And so then my grandmother, who lived with us when my parents first immigrated, my paternal grandmother, she used to, since I was so hyper, sit me on her lap and have me hold the fabric and sew. So that's where the sewing started.
Okay.
When I learned that I needed to buy 2 suits and I don't have the money, I'm like, I could probably make these, triangle bikinis. These are pretty easy. And that's where it came from, to not have to buy 2 suits. Move forward to my 20s when I'm a nurse. And my dad, so my parents wound up separating, and my dad remarries with my stepmom now, who does Ir al Sol with me, and is a seamstress in Colombia. She immigrated in 2013, and we meet for the first time. My dad introduces us to her, and we just clicked. She's a widow. She started sewing to provide for her kids when she widowed. She had never worked in her life. And then at that time that I met her, I had just widowed 3 years prior, something that I'll share with my firstborn. I'm remarried now, phenomenal man, heaven sent. But that connected us. And she saw that I was doing little dabbles with the bathing suit and sewing. And she actually is the true artisan of the sewing. And we just migrated. She goes, oh my gosh, that's something that I could do now that I'm here. And that's where it took off. So we've technically been doing it since 2013. In Miami and colleagues, and people keep coming back. And I want to say now that I gained the confidence, and through COVID, I realized this is something that is going to take a lot of people have reached out to us to make customized.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And how it united us. Ir al Sol, always look up toward the sun.
Yeah.
Beach and reborn, and that's where it came.
That's so cute. Aw. So now it's an official business.
Yes.
You started it in 2013. So
yes.
Now it's like, okay, walk us through that journey.
So it was a side thing because, like immigrant parents, what I was instilled, you come, you work hard, you study, you build a profession. That was it. So
yes.
Entrepreneur thing was not something that I knew of or thought. Mm-hmm. So that's why I took it as a side thing with my stepmom. It wasn't till I want to say COVID and how healthcare has changed.
Yeah.
I still love it, but I needed something to fill my passion. I would come home and design and sew and that's where the seed was planted. So it wasn't until this past year, 2023, that I started really tapping into the community of entrepreneurship, especially female entrepreneurship. Yeah. That's something that I hadn't seen or had connected with. And just seeing how phenomenal it is and the resources we have now and the community, that I gained the confidence to be like, and my stepmom was all on board. She's like, yes, let's do it. I'm like, do you think you want to just go into official business? So it wasn't till June that we did the LLC. I learned that new. And then from there, little by little, I've been fortunate that my husband's in digital marketing.
Okay.
So he saw it back in 2013 and piggyback. I was staying home with my son. That's another American dream thing that I want to share. When I widowed with my firstborn, I stayed home with her for a year. I had family support. That's something else about immigrants' family. We have our things, but we stick together when it comes down to it. It don't matter who's on the wrong side of the bed that day, they pull together. That resilience once again. So I was able to stay home with her. So when I met my husband now and remarried, I knew for a fact I wanted to stay home. How did I fill my head? Sewing. and making swimsuits. So he saw that in 2013. He actually made a website, and that we just identified it August 22nd back then. And he goes, you should make this a business. Like, you have something. So that's where it came. And I just recently launched officially in January when both my kids were born, because that's when it was born, January of 2020.
Oh,
so
that's so sweet.
I like to connect things. I'm an historian like that.
That's awesome. So you guys make the swimsuits by hand?
Yes.
So
I'm actually going to upload how to measure. I didn't realize how non-confident people were to measure themselves. So you submit your measurements on the website, chest size, waist side, which is from the belly, and the hip side. And then we do ask for torso because there's a distinction. And then from there, you decide if you want padding, extra support. Right now, we have done males in the past, but right now our launch is toward the female population. And it's through your true curves, And once it's submitted, it's a 2-week turnover because we review. You get to pick your swatch off the website. There's a link with the fabric company that we work with that brings fabrics from Colombia.
Wow.
Local distributor, and you pick your swatches, and it's really capturing your true body, your true, essence of what you want your swimsuit to be, but also the swimwear that tells a story of you. How you produce it while always enjoying the ups and downs and waves of life.
Wow. I can already imagine this blowing up, especially because it's suited for your body.
Correct.
You know how, you talked about the struggle of picking a swimsuit for your body. And I just went through this in December, going to the Dominican Republic, trying to find a swimsuit for my body.
Yes.
And it's like, it's either like there's nothing, like the swimsuit is like for you to be literally like naked out there, or there's too much. It's like, wait, I don't want to cover it all. So it was like, wow.
And then you could decide if you want a slight compression, non-compression. I'm an active person. I'm always running around. So I want something to like, as much as I may not be big on top, but I don't want things popping out.
Yeah.
So that's where it came from. And I know there's a lot of manufacturing companies out there that mass produce. And that's another beautiful thing about it. We're taking it back to basics, like the true art of like immigrants that teach their kids to sew or crochet and all that. It's that true essence of that art form. So it's been well received, and I'm looking forward to see where it goes.
That's awesome. This is going to blow up. I can already see it. So remember me when you are blown up.
I will.
And all the billboards. I can see it now.
I believe in paying it forward. So that's something that I instill in my staff as a nurse when I've precepted and stuff. Life has been great to my immigrant parents, and even when I became a nurse and my preceptors. So always paying it forward, I feel it's a good motto to live by.
Yes, definitely. What advice would you give for someone who has an idea, but they haven't executed it yet?
The advice is for me, why it took 10 years, don't shun it away. For a while, I thought, no, and it's how I was brought up. You work, you get a paycheck, that's it. Entrepreneurship wasn't taught to me. Write it down. Tap into it. Research it. And if it keeps gnawing at you, it's not going to rest. If it's a passion, if it's something that you really see, and something I learned recently is if it fixes a problem, like customized or uniqueness in swimwear, then there's going to be people that you're going to meet their need or resolve a solution. So tap into it and give enough discipline, consistency to put time into it, to make it grow, to bloom, to flourish it. It's scary because you don't know how to go. I think we're in a society that you wanted to take off, instant gratification.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Take the time to write it down, research it, and grow it, nurture it. And you'll be successful.
Amen. Yeah, it takes time though. Remember,
it takes time, tenacity, and discipline, which is something that I know it took me 10 years because I was used to, you go to nursing, you take this class, and now you graduate, and now you practice, and now you do this. It's the same thing as business. Write it down. Tap into, now there's phenomenal resources out there.
Yes.
And community.
Yes.
And the algorithm, I hear about that all the time. The niche, it will come to you, but you got to be disciplined and put in the time. Yeah. It's not going to happen magically.
No, it's a lot of work too, though. It is.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I find it, though, rewarding when you have something you plant and it grows. It's a lot of work, but it's so different when it's for something that sleepless nights, don't get me wrong, frustrations, but it's so much different when it's for something that you have a passion for.
It is. It is. It really, really is. That is so true. Because even this right now, like I never dreamed that I would be doing this. Ever.
And you do it so well.
Oh thank you.
You do it so well.
And I was telling my husband, like, even when I do a virtual podcast interview and I'm done with such a high. I was like, oh my God, that was so great. And I'm just like on cloud 9, like a natural high, just on cloud 9, just loving it. Yes, just imagine. Loving it. When I do my monthly masterclass, when I finish and like people are asking questions and I'm able to answer and I'm like, where did I get that answer from? You know? And it's just like, I just finished with such a high, and you're right. So it is hard work. It takes time. But when you have that passion or that love, it's totally, that reward is completely different.
And it's like to tap into something people could or women can associate with. For me, it's like that child when you see them, you plant something, you see them growing, and then you look back and you don't realize that all that frustration and time that you put in, how much it's grown you and changed. Because if I tell you 6 months ago when I decided I'm going to register it, LLC it, and I look back now to June 24th to the launch that I did in January, on January 7th, even though it was 6 months, I'm like, I don't even recognize that person. But I didn't see the changes till I look back.
Yep.
And that's something that if I could tell you, write it down, invest the time, struggle, vent the way that you know how, self-care. Know that your future self, when you get there and you look back, you're going to be at awe.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And last question that I always love to ask my guests is, what does the American dream mean to you?
The American dream, oh my God, the beauty of the complexity of finding that thing that makes you, paying it forward, but having choices, and to either be a professional and switch to being an entrepreneur in my case, to go from immigrant parents that are teaching you their culture, but yet showing you that the best is yet to come. Like the American dream, if I could say it tangible, is getting to the point that you have your own Hollywood star. And there's so many avenues to get there. That's to me. Or like I would say, to associate it to Ir al Sol, I will be in Miami Swim Week one year.
Yes.
Going from struggling, from finding bathing suits to be able to launch a Ir al Sol swimwear line and to see my vision of getting to Miami Swim Week in the future. That's the American dream to me.
I can't wait. And then I look back at this episode and was like, there, she said it. There she is. I love it. Thank you, Evelin, so much for this.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been an honor, a humbling honor to be able to speak toward and represent my immigrant parents.
Yes, and it's been a privilege to listen. It was great. Thank you.